Good evening and welcome to the Sound Off Show. My name is Linda Kirker. I host the program and I thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is, I'm sure you've been watching on TV as I did earlier today. This is the 17th anniversary of the destruction of the, what were they? The
Trade Towers.
Trade Center buildings in New York City, and we need to remember. We need to ask for blessings and on all of those who lost loved ones in those events, and we just need to remember and be watchful. And also, I wanted to start my opener by talking a little bit about English as the official language of our country and our state. There are 32 states in this country that have made English the official language of their state. And there is a bill in Congress. It's called the English Language Unity Act. And the reason why that's important and why I'm going to urge you to contact Senators Leahy and Sanders and Representative Welch to ask them to support that piece of legislation. There are 32 states, as I say, 32 states have made English their official language, and it's time for Vermont to do it, and it's time for our country to make sure that English is the official language of our country. What does that do? It unifies us. Multiculturalism and multi-languages is divisive, and it's very costly to the American taxpayer. Do you know that our country prints election ballots in foreign languages at over 1,000 polling places in our country? Driver's license exams are printed in as many as 30 languages. To become a citizen, you must know the English language. Since 1906, that's been a law. In healthcare alone, it's estimated that multilingual services cost American taxpayers $267 million each year. It's time that we remember that English is our language, and when you come to this country, you need to assimilate into our nation, and especially learn our language so that you can be a productive citizen, because you know the language. Okay, that's my opener. Now, I'm very happy to introduce my guest, Brad Ferland. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Linda.
So glad to have you here.
Nice to be here.
And Brad is a Vermont marketing consultant. And I think that's a very broad job. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and then what you do as a marketing consultant in Vermont. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
So I actually was born in Burlington, but I moved up to Franklin County in 1980 temporarily. Okay. And have been here ever since.
Temporarily, huh?
Yeah. And I did find out in my adult life that my grandfather actually was born in Highgate on a farm.
Oh, wow.
And then left at age 16 and joined the railroad. So I have family roots up here.
Okay, so your father worked for the railroad?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather, excuse me.
Yeah, so he was born, around 1900 in Highgate. And
isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I worked for St. Albans Messenger for almost 5 years. I did advertising, and I did a weekly editorial page column that I wrote. And everybody did everything in the paper. We all took pictures. We all did.
Sure.
And then I went out on my own and became a marketing consultant with businesses in the beginning. I did a political stint with then Sam Hudson, who was a Fairfax forester who ran for Senate, and he became the first Republican Franklin County senator in at least 40 years, and it might have been 60 years.
No kidding.
Can't remember.
I remember meeting him.
Yeah, real nice guy, just a very level-headed, sensible guy. I was involved in projects around here. When the hospital was going through the certificate of need process way back, and they were trying to merge. I was doing marketing for that. When the high school was taking over the hospital, I worked with that. They took the hospital building.
Oh, yes.
And
the old hospital on Fairfield Street.
yes, yeah.
And turned it into a school.
Into the school, and
Right.
that was a bond vote. So we needed to get voter approval for that. I had worked for many years, and your listeners will all know this saga of getting Walmart into St. Albans, and sort of the difficulty that we had there.
That took time, didn't it?
It did take time, and downtown St. Albans looks fabulous now, and it's been this symmetry that has worked. So I think, fortunately.
Well, whenever I drive over to Walmart, they're not all the time, but most of the time, that parking lot's pretty full.
Yeah.
They do, I think, quite a good business, and it's a nice resource.
It is. And St. Albans City really worked on their infrastructure, and really that model, the hospital modeled that early on when they were trying to figure out if they were going to recruit physicians. This is way back, but whether they recruit for physicians or would they do a building project? And what happened, and I actually credit, there were Harrigans in Fairfield who, first of all, thought that the site up the hill was the best site, because the board of directors at that time thought that the downtown site was best. And lo and behold, look at all the land.
Oh my goodness.
And the expansion and how beautiful it is.
Unbelievable what they've done up there.
Yeah. So that really that paid off for the community. We have a great hospital here. It's a great resource. I'd worked a little bit south of here when we were bringing, not we, but when Husky was going into Milton, helped out with that. So I've been really fortunate to be involved, asked to be involved in projects that have been good employment projects and what I consider good community projects.
Yeah, well, I guess I would guess that the people who asked you to become involved knew that you had skills, knowledge, background to be able to be a force to help things come to fruition.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of it was that if you communicate in a straightforward way and it's a projects that make sense, then they can prevail.
Right. I agree.
Doesn't mean that they're not going to have obstacles, because we have lots and lots of obstacles in Vermont.
Always.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal.
Yeah, it is.
And a lot of what has to happen is education.
Yeah.
Helping people to understand the value, the process, why this is a beneficial thing to do for the community. And that's not easy to do. That's a job.
Yeah, and it takes time. Sometimes the Walmart took years.
Oh my goodness, many.
Jeff Davis, the developer, was very patient, and before I worked for the Messenger, I worked downtown St. Albans in a clothing store there, Nate's.
Oh, really?
And I learned early on that if you have a regional magnet, meaning downtown working with the shopping center collectively, you can bring the people in. And we did that. We had things back then like Moonlight Madness and sidewalk sales and Super Saturdays and things like that. And if everybody participated and had a common goal, everyone would benefit.
Yeah, and that's kind of a way of doing the things you just mentioned, the Moonlight Madness and so forth, brings people together.
Yeah.
And you get the camaraderie within the community. I often, as I look at the local newspaper, when I see the things that are going on, it's just so much goes on here.
Yeah.
Really, between the museum and the Chamber of Commerce and other entities, the schools and athletics. In fact, when there was a young man who approached me. Let me see, where was I? I was shopping and I came out with my goods, and this young man was there, and he had a BFA football shirt on,
right.
And they were looking for donations. So, of course, I support.
Hard to resist.
It is hard to resist. As a matter of fact, I didn't have the money with me at the time, so because I used my credit card, to shop.
Yeah.
So I gave him, his mother, I think, was with him. She was over to the side. And I said, I'll tell you what, here's my business. He said, could we come to your house and pick up the money? So a couple of days later, there was a knock at the door, and there he was.
Yeah.
So mission accomplished. But
Perfect.
At the same time, I got this little card with the schedule.
Yeah.
So I love watching young people, in sports and so forth. So I wrote them the date, the home games down on my calendar.
Nice.
So I can go to some of those. Anyway, I digress. But the youth are an important part of, of our community and our state and so forth, the future.
They are.
So you've had a varied and interesting work experience.
Yes.
Which gives you an opportunity to know a lot more about the country, about the community and the state as you do that. And you also have the opportunity to meet a lot of people,
Yes.
share ideas and work together and, be a people person. That's what I call myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great thing. In Vermont, you can do that. You can travel the state in one day and be in Bennington. I was down in Bennington a month ago with the North Bennington School. It's an independent school down there that the community made independent.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it's a remarkable school, and it contrasts public schools, not in a negative way, but just it has things it can do that help kids. And I think it's a good model. And
in a different way?
In a different way.
From the public schools?
Correct, yeah.
Well, I personally have the philosophy and the belief that parents should be able to select the school that they feel is in the best interest of their child or children.
Yeah.
And I would like to see that as an opportunity instead of forcing things that may not be the best option for the child.
Yeah. So you're hitting on Act 46 a little bit here.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's hammer away.
Well, it's Act 46 was a consolidation of schools, and the genesis to me seemed to be that they wanted to save money for Vermonters. Education costs were very high.
They're still extremely high.
And they're still extremely high. And Act 46 was really, legislators across the aisles were supportive of it. And it passed. And what it has done, it's had I suspect it's had some good things happen with it, with consolidations and some efficiencies, but it's had some unintended consequences as well. And one of the unintended consequences is exactly what you just brought up, and that is school choice. We had 55 communities in the state of Vermont had school choice. And this is a tradition since 1869. It's almost a 150-year tradition.
Wow.
Meaning we had all of these little communities who would send kids to other communities and were able to choose.
Was it mostly for high school?
No, it not necessarily.
Really?
No, it could be across the board.
I didn't realize that.
There are a lot of one-room schoolhouses in Vermont, all over the place. Now there's one left in Elmore.
Really?
That's a tri-grade school, wonderful school in a beautiful setting, and
good outcomes.
great outcomes.
Yeah.
And so in our region, Elmore lost school choice, Fairfield lost school choice, Westford lost school choice, and more. And what happens what I think is the shame of it is, one, education of kids is one of the biggest things, attractors for people to come into communities.
Absolutely.
They look at, am I going to live here? Am I going to live here? Am I going to live here? And if there's no school, or there's not the right kind of school, for your child's needs, then you're not going to be there.
Well, I'm quite aware that I agree with you that people specifically look for a place where, okay, when my child is ready for high school, this town has school choice, and we can. Well, I'm thinking of Georgia.
Georgia, perfect example.
And I hope they keep it.
Yeah.
We need some communities that, if they feel strongly about something, they need to stand up.
Yeah.
And fight for what they think is best for their community. I mean, Montgomery, Randy Brock several years ago did some research on several schools, I believe, and Montgomery School was outstanding. Outstanding.
Yeah.
And so why don't we look at the schools that are really getting great results for the children's education?
Yeah.
And the ones who are most prepared to move on to the next level, or to college, for instance. You're aware, I don't want to move this out of alignment here, our thought process, but I'm sure you're aware that now, because our students are having trouble with mathematics when they go to college, they're not prepared. So there's a group, I think it's maybe someone from a couple of college entities, and then the State Board of Education and one other group have representatives, and they're going to put together a math program, an advanced math program, so that when our students graduate from high school, they can make it in college. Now, what are we doing that they're not prepared already?
Yeah.
Vermont spends close to, on average, per pupil, on average, close to, it's around $22,000 per pupil.
Yeah.
The national average is $11,700 on average, okay? That doesn't mean we spend that for every pupil.
Right.
Some pupils we spend a whole lot more, $50,000 or more for one student.
Yeah.
Okay? So, but we're not doing the best that we can in, it's math and science, I believe, that Vermont is lacking. If someone knows differently, please feel free to call in and share what you know from your experience. I think that parents need to really know what's happening. Well, for instance, I'm guessing for you, but I know for me that when I was in school, many moons ago, of course, you got grades from 1 to 100. You take a test, and if there are 50 questions, then each one is worth 2 points.
Yeah.
And you get a 50 grade, or you get an 88 grade, or you get a 95 grade, and you know how well you did.
Yeah.
And your parents can know how well you did and that you knew the material.
Yeah.
But today I'm told recently by a parent who wasn't happy about it that how is the grading? It's like, there's a word for each level. Why can't I think of that? It's like competent, or, that's not the word they use, but it's nondescript. It
Right.
doesn't give you enough information to know, if a student wants to be productive, and they're driven to do well. When you see your grade, it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a number like your
Yeah.
grade, produced.
They've taken a lot of pressure off the kids to produce.
The expectations. We do the best thing for our children when we have high expectations of them. And for the teachers, we have high expectations of them. Personally, I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but personally, I feel that our teachers, many of whom are wonderful, the most important thing in education
Yeah.
is a great teacher.
Yeah.
Okay? But I believe the teachers and the students today are trapped in a failed education system that we are paying a huge amount of money for. And I think it's time for somebody to step up and say enough.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. I have a 9-year-old daughter who now who's in the 4th grade. So I've watched kindergarten through 4 over the last 5 years. And almost, going into the 5th year. She has had absolutely the most fabulous teachers I can imagine.
Oh, great.
In each grade. And what I see going into the schools each day is, you've got all of these challenges with social problems, with drugs and alcohol, with divorce, with this multitude of things that teachers have to deal with.
Yeah.
And we have, in Vermont, we really do have a sort of this top-down rule in education. We have a State Board of Education who sits in meetings around the state and they come up with education process and rule. And it trickles down. So superintendents and principals and administrators are all constantly sort of orchestrating to these rules and edicts that they have to follow. And I think that, left to our own devices, a system when teachers really could just, focus on teaching.
Exactly.
That was a pretty good thing. And I think
it was a
that
wonderful thing.
they do a great job with what they have and with all of these challenges.
It's a wonder that they stay in the field.
It is.
With the myriad of challenges that there are today. I'm tough sometimes, but I feel that sometimes you need to be tough.
Yeah.
In other words, well, I'll give you an example. I have a friend whose daughter is a 5th grade teacher in this state, not in Franklin County, but in this state. And she's tough. The first day of school, she will talk with the students and she will say, here's how it's going to happen in my classroom.
Yeah.
All right? And if you have any problem, you come to me and we will work it out together. But I expect you to work hard, to do your best. And the first year they moved her to 5th grade from 1st grade, she was a little like, oh boy, that's a big change with the students. And but she figured it out, and she let those students know right from the get-go what was expected. And the parents were sending notes and calling up the school and telling her that you're making my child work too hard, and he's getting too much homework. Mm-hmm. And by Christmas time, they were bringing her presents. Mm-hmm. I don't know what you did with my child, but oh my gosh, what a difference. Yeah. It's wonderful.
So she got to do what she does best, right?
Yes,
Teach.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But she, I think some of the others, like the principal, was asking, how do you do this? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, that she was a shining example of how to get good results. There's
a lot of great teachers.
Yes.
There really are. And
I'm not anti-teacher. Yeah. You know, I'm for the teachers.
The small communities with Act 46, a lot of the big communities just, they had their mergers, things are kind of set. But rural Vermont is still in danger here. And that's my biggest concern, is that we're not, first of all, if you don't have a good school in your community, a school at all, then you don't have a gathering point for economics. Your little grocery store or your whatever isn't getting as much attention because people aren't coming to that area of the community.
True.
And you're also not, you're losing a part of your community fabric as well, which is, and I think that, you know, the legislature, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the legislature because that's part of what I've been looking at.
Sure.
They can make an adjustment on this. We could, now that the dust has settled, Act 46 was like this steam locomotive that was going down the track and nobody could stop it. Mm-hmm. It was banging through cars. It was doing what it wanted to do.
That's not freedom.
No, it wasn't good. And it, you know, to me, it's a leadership issue. You've got to, people have to look at what the basic product is, the kids. So are the kids being served the best that they can? Mm-hmm. And the answer is, in my opinion, no. Not if you're taking schools out of rural communities. We can put them back.
Explain what you, just for the viewers, explain what you mean by taking a school out of a community.
Well, if you have a consolidation, for instance, Chelsea, Vermont, their school closed. And in the consolidation process.
Really?
Yeah. So now you have this
void, really.
Yeah, you do. And this happened and will happen in other communities. Now you're seeing, I just read today, by the way, I printed it out because it was sort of new news. The State Board of Education is now going to dictate the mergers that didn't happen. So Chelsea, Ludlow, Franklin, Montgomery, Wyndham, Barnum, these Newberry, Groton, Reigate, these little, how many people have been to any of these communities? I've been to a handful of them. They're beautiful little areas in Vermont.
And they're resisting being forced to merge.
They're saying, look, first of all, your model didn't work for us. Mm-hmm. Second of all, you're taking something away from our community that we value. Mm-hmm. And now, because the law said, okay, you didn't take the carrot. Act 46 was like this dangling carrot that was, I think it was like a Ponzi scheme because money went into communities from all the other communities if they jumped up and said, okay, we'll do that.
Yeah, for a brief period of time, your taxes will be a little lower.
Correct.
But then
right.
The axe falls.
And I don't even know if anybody quantifies savings in an understandable way.
Well, this whole Act 46 is control from the top down.
Right. It is.
And maybe, as you said earlier, Brad, there could be savings for one school or another. But my first question when I heard about this was, wait a minute, what if one school district has, or school, I say not a district, has some money in a fund, and the town that they want them to merge with has a big debt.
Right.
How does that work?
The town that didn't have the debt gets the debt. An example, Essex Village and Essex Junction and Westford merged. There was very little resistance to it. But getting back to unintended consequences, if you live in Westford near the Fairfax border, a lot of times you went to Fairfax, K through 12. Now you have to drive 14, 15, 16 miles to get
Essex.
to school, to Essex, or be bused. But a lot of people do this, they go to school, they come home, they go to sports, they don't have that choice anymore. And then property values. Choice towns have higher property values in Vermont than non-choice towns.
Oh, yes.
So we haven't even seen the other shoe drop on what's happened in Westford. But I think that what you will find is over time, people were grandfathered at first. Students who were kind of in the system could still go to Fairfax or wherever. But now they can. I think that's done.
Well, I know that Georgia is a town that is attractive.
Yeah.
In fact, we have so many new homes that have gone up there, it's unbelievable. Because I'm sure one of the factors, in addition to being a bedroom community, so to speak, to Burlington, but yet you're out in the country, so it's the best of both worlds.
Right.
But they have school choice. Some of the high school students go to Essex, some go to South Burlington, some go to BFA. And the parents are responsible for their children.
Right. And that's what we're seeing with the independent schools too. And I witnessed testimony after testimony of kids who came to Montpelier and said, I didn't fit into a certain school or environment or something. And kid after kid after kid said, I was able to make the change and my life changed. I started really, doing great. And it's not going to be every kid. It's, we make rules to, to corral things that don't need corralling.
Well, I see with healthcare and now education that a lot of it is about control from the top. Directing. I mean, I've lost 3 doctors. One went to, I like to think I didn't drive them out. But no, actually, I really like them a lot. And one is now in New York. Another one went out west somewhere. And one is teaching medical students. So, they didn't like what was going on.
And independent docs are getting squeezed out. We have independents who really have done a fabulous job, and it's independent doc, independent school, independent.
Exactly.
Where is it? What's happening here?
Well, it's not. I don't think it's good. I see doctors, private enterprises, either retiring or moving out of state or going to work for a hospital.
That's right. So the legislature, can we talk about that a little bit? I've been going around the state and really just being a gatherer, so to speak. And that means that I've been to almost every county. I've spoken with people who are in education, people who are energy experts, people who are, across the board, farming, people who are experts, and saying to them, municipal government people, legislators as well. So business, legislators, and just people with skill sets that are important to listen to.
Sure.
And the frustration level is huge, and the communication level is difficult in Vermont.
For you, it's the frustration level, or for a lot of...
For people that I'm talking to.
Okay.
And one of the things that I see is Montpelier, the climate in Montpelier. If you've gone down to Montpelier and you testify in a committee, there's a lot of well-meaning legislators. But the system itself, first of all, we have a session that lasts 4+ months. So it eliminates a lot of people who could serve. And in this gathering, one of the things that I think is the solution to that is we absolutely should shorten the session. We do not need a 4-month session in Vermont.
Well, that would mean less time for nonsense.
Well, let me give you an
They have to focus on the really critical issues.
Right, and if people understand the system, it's lots of committees, and every committee drafts bills. Bills become laws, and in the 2014-15 session, if I've got this right, 1,155 bills were drafted.
You're kidding.
1,155 bills were drafted. That means the potential for 1,155 laws. Now, that means that 150 House members and 30 Senate people are absorbing 1,155 bills somehow.
Well, are you saying they were written, but did they all get out of committee?
No, they didn't all get out of committee. However,
Okay.
what it boiled down to in a 2-year session, right? So they go 2 years, 234 bills were passed. Think of that, that's 1,000 new legislative laws in a 10-year period in Vermont.
If you average it.
Yeah, so I think what we should do, and I sort of joke, they're called lawmakers, and they take it seriously, literally. They go down and they go, by God, we're going to make some laws. And if you shorten the session, maybe we would, lessen that. And then you got to look at all the laws that were passed. What are they doing, and are they functional, and are they benefiting Vermonters? And if they're not, really look at that.
I like that.
I think it's a moratorium. I think we should have a moratorium. I also think that if you shorten the session, you could pay people more. It wouldn't cost us any more, because we would just consolidate the dollars into a shorter period of time. And meaning that somebody who could leave a job and could actually support their family and serve for a month and a half or 2 months, and then go back.
Well, I can't remember now what state it is, but there is one state at least that has a session of 90 days, which is 3 months.
Yeah.
But that kind of forces the process into focusing on the more critical issues.
Yeah.
You're talking about people who can't really run for office because they can't afford to have the time down there. I'll tell you quickly what I did. When I decided to run, I went in to tell the executive director at the Red Cross, which is where I work, blood program. And I had a job that, I'll call important, because I was overseeing all the blood drives in northern New Hampshire and northern Vermont. So I went in to tell her that I had decided I'd like to run for the legislature, and she was not happy, okay?
Yeah.
So I thought about it, and I actually found out that the law says that, or at least at that time it did, that your employer cannot keep you from running unless they can prove beyond a doubt that you are critical to their operation. So what I went into her and I talked with her again, and I said, I am willing to train someone to do the job.
Yeah.
And I will work on Saturdays and Mondays.
Wow. Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
And it worked out fine. I said, I promise you, I will keep up my performance level. Because anyway.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
So.
But it's not easy, right?
No, it's not
You're
easy.
making sacrifices.
But you know what? If you want something in life
Yeah.
badly enough,
Yeah.
you figure out a way to make it work if it means that much to you. And it's not easy.
Yeah.
And there are jobs where you can't do that.
Right.
I realize that.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could, but I
Yeah.
got it done.
Yeah.
So you really have to want to do it. But I understand your suggestion about I like the idea of shortening the session because it will force them to work on the most critical issues.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, they, you've observed this, but the session goes for 4+ months. But the general members do not even look at the budget until this squeeze time at the very end of the session, when they're tired, when they've just have had enough. And suddenly the most important piece of state of Vermont's sort of operations, this budget, gets presented to them. And they go till midnight and they debate and then they go into little rooms and how can you understand everything, these huge, complicated budgets
You can't.
in 3 or 4 days? They should be presenting budgets in the first month at least, and people should be getting a sense of what the direction that they're heading. And the governor has to take responsibility for this. He generates the budget in the beginning, but it's doable. These things are doable. And
You gotta wanna.
and it brings up the other thing, and this is to me is a behavior issue that is, I think, more recent time. And I met with Governor Salmon as an example of somebody who I have a lot of respect for, Democrat. He will say that when he was in the legislature, he will say, we disagreed, we debated, we had different opinions about things, but at the end of the day, we came together and we solved problems that needed solving. I don't see that happening now.
So much divisiveness.
There is, and there is this hierarchy rule, and where bills don't even come out of committees because of hierarchy rule, and bills don't get to the floor. They call them bills on the wall. So all of these things that may be absolutely beneficial to Vermonters, politics have
Absolutely.
taken over.
The Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Yeah.
They, obviously, there's about a 3/4 to a quarter
Right.
division of Democrats
Right.
to Republicans.
Yep.
And so they have the power,
Right.
the Democrats do, in the House and the Senate by big margins.
Yeah.
And so their leadership can say, that's
Yeah.
not coming out, and there's nothing the Republicans can really do about it.
Well, and maybe you're aware of this, you probably are. There was a period of time when you went into the House chambers, not me, but legislators went in the House chambers, and on a particular desk was a piece of paper that said yes or said no.
I heard about that.
And it was the how you were to vote on a particular bill. So people would come in. This is under, in this case, it was under Democrat rule. They didn't even have to know what the bill was about.
Nope.
All they had to know was I'm supposed to vote yes today. And
Well, I can tell you, on Tuesday afternoons, the Republicans have a caucus
Right.
meeting,
Yep.
and the Democrats
Yeah.
have theirs.
Yeah.
And people from various committees share what's going on in that committee with the bills and everything, so you have a little bit of a heads up.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, if there was a vote coming up on a particular bill, we were told, about the facts and figures and everything, but we never, ever were told how to vote.
Yeah.
We were respected enough that we could make a decision, a reasonable decision,
Yeah.
based on the information that was presented to us.
Yeah, we had a legislator up here who was a Democrat, I think a really solid thinking guy, and he would not vote the way he was told to vote. And he became very ostracized by that, became very disillusioned, and I mean, we're a citizen legislature.
Yeah, and so if you're going to be dictated to about how you need to vote, or you won't be on this
Right.
committee again, or
Yeah.
you won't have this chance, or we have a caller. Caller, welcome to the show.
Yes, well, this is David. I had to call in tonight.
You did. Well, can you speak up a little?
If I speak any louder, I'll have to eat the phone.
Well, maybe we can get...
Hello, David.
How you doing, Brad?
I'm doing great, thank you.
You're starting to look 20 years younger with that white hair.
Yeah.
It looks
Earlier
looks good.
when I was up to the studio, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
When I was up to the studio, you were talking about Act 46.
Yes.
Act 46 was good for schools that were 50 kids or less. Consolidating like the St. Albans City, St. Albans Town, and Fairfield. Doesn't that, the debtness of all the schools that have indebtedness, doesn't that come under the Maple Run district now?
Yes.
Who pays that?
Taxpayers.
That's right. So if Fairfield would just get done building a, say, $10 million school, which is cheap, then the taxpayers of St. Albans Town and St. Albans City would have to pick up that indebtedness.
Yeah, an example of that is Morristown and Elmore merged. Elmore is a tiny little town. Morrisville's the big town. Morrisville had all the representation, the majority of it, on the new school board. They have the merger. First of all, Elmore votes no, and there's a revote, which we can do in Vermont. If they don't get your way, they had a revote all of a sudden, and they threaten, well, your taxes are going to go up if you don't do this. So then, lo and behold, Morristown all of a sudden is going to have this construction project.
Oh, wow, isn't that nice?
And which Elmore has to, contribute to. It went away, but that's an example of what David's saying. It can be tough.
Yeah, and Fairfield, of course, I understand before they even went into this district that they needed a lot of repairs to their school. The town of St. Albans, SATAC, most of their indebtedness is paid off. The city school has a lot of work that they need to be done, and they're done in the past. So when you put all that indebtedness together, the taxpayers are going to pay for all three of those districts in order to make up that indebtedness. I think our education system needs to be changed to where it's better than Act 46, because Act 46 is just consolidated all the bills, and we're just going to pay one bill for everybody. I think it was for bigger schools. That's what's happening. Like Maple Run, and I think in the long run, we get that 10 cents, 8 cents, 6 cents, and 4 cents. But after that, get ready to hold on to your wallet. You know why people are leaving Vermont?
Oh, yeah.
Because the taxes are too high.
You bet.
And I was up to Morris's Service Center about 3 weeks ago talking to him. He had 5 people that came into his station that have work done on a vehicle, and he said 5 people from his customers are leaving this area and heading to either North Carolina or Tennessee.
Yeah.
And our governor or whoever thought this one up giving $10,000 to people to come to Vermont and work.
Right.
They had to give $10,000 to the people just to stay here because they're leaving, like, with busloads.
Well, Dave, one of the things that I believe is important, but nobody seems to be doing it, and that is an audit of the Department of Education and an audit of the Agency of Human Services for looking for efficiency and outcomes and everything. I don't know if he's still the state auditor. I can't remember his name right now, but he tried to audit one aspect, one department of the Agency of Human Services, and he said he couldn't do a good audit because they didn't have a list of expectations and so forth, outcomes that they could measure. Mm-hmm. So what kind of business operation is this?
Yeah, well, I was talking to a store owner the other day that has a grocery store and gas station. When you get that with an EBT card, people on social services, mm-hmm. That's to help them with the necessities of life.
I think it should be just for food.
Well, what I heard the other day, and a woman showed me this little machine that they have hooked to their telephone lines, is that they get a certain percent of cash money on that card, and the rest is for groceries. Why should they be getting cash money, especially when we're helping to provide them, food and necessities of life, which I don't mind helping people. But I also feel we got to give something back to society. I feel that that's one of the bare minimums that they ought to do. Is I don't mind helping you, but I want you to take and go up Taylor Park. There's nothing wrong with you. You're able-bodied. Go up there. We'll have people assigned, and you'll help clean the park or the Bay Park or help some senior citizen. Give something back to society.
The more that government does for you, the less control you have over your life.
That's right.
And we
just like all these candidates that are running for office, they take money from businesses. In the messengers the other day, there was a lot of them that big businesses are giving a lot of money to these candidates. That is a way of, in my opinion, of buying votes. And I don't think it's right. People that that are voting for these people, or candidates running for office, it should be their donations, not the donations of business, because our congressmen, our senators, and our president of the United States, and every future past president, and congressman, and senator are owned by lobbyists. And you know it, Linda, and I know it. But the people just let it still happen.
Our president is a billionaire. He doesn't need money from anybody.
You know something? I had an argument with one of my relatives over Donald Trump.
All right.
And I told him, I said, you know something? I said, I like the First Lady, but Donald Trump I can't stomach. And, you know that, Linda. I think he's done some good, don't get me wrong.
He definitely has.
To shut his mouth and,
all right.
And then, then he said, I didn't say that, and they got him on a recording, so.
Well, listen.
Yeah, I know the time's getting short, so I'll shut my mouth and get off.
Bye, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Okay. All right. Back to what you want to chat about. Is there anything we didn't cover that was on your list?
We were going to update a little bit. Vermont Yankee. There's a proposed sale to North Star that's been going on for a couple years now, and they are in the process with the Public Utility Commission, which used to be the Department of Public Service. Yeah. So they need to get approval for that, and they also the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC, weighs in on that as well. And so right now. And why is this significant? Yankees closed down. It's significant.
Darn it.
Yeah, I know. That's another issue.
Cheap.
Right.
Cheap power.
Yep.
It was clean power.
Yep. Vermont had the cleanest electricity portfolio in the State of the Union with Vermont Yankee, Hydro-Quebec. And now we don't. Now we have a renewable goal of 90% by 2050. We are doing a lot of things for that, but it's reliant on Hydro-Quebec for a big portion as a renewable.
So we're not self-sufficient anymore.
We're not.
We had a wonderful facility there, as I said, clean, cheap, renewable energy.
Yeah.
And that could have been continue to be a great resource for the state of Vermont.
Right.
And now we're reliant on energy coming from outside our country.
We are. We're getting, it's Yankee is not going to reopen. There is new nuclear that is definitely making sense. Finland has one of the newest nuclear
updated type
brand new, not brand new now, but they went to new nuclear, and other countries who were doing all these renewable incentives have gone, whoa, wait, this isn't going to work. It's not, I don't think anybody was against renewables, but the blend of nuclear in the mix was an important part as a baseload power.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, the North Star is looking to
purchase
and then decommission Vermont Yankee. It's significant to southern Vermont because then that site can be used for something.
Oh, what happened to that Wyndham County?
Yeah.
What a nightmare. I mean, people who were earning $100,000 a year, many of them working for Vermont Yankee, all of a sudden were unemployed.
Well, a lot of them went to other nuclear, but they left Wyndham County, 650 workers, and now I don't know if there's a dozen. And
the community there just lost a lot of its economy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at the clock, and okay, I'm told we have 3 minutes.
All right.
So what would you
Where'd the hour go?
When you're having fun, time flies.
Right.
So what do you really, in the last couple of minutes or so, what do you want to get across that you might not have said so far? You can always come back.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that people do vote, that they get involved, that they understand who they're voting for.
And why.
Franklin County has been a long time a very, what I would consider a pretty sensible, common sense kind of county. And I have traveled up into the Northeast Kingdom. I see the same thing up there. But if I had one sort of crystal ball wish, it would be that legislators started working better together. That we could, this divisiveness that we have in society is absolutely destructive to everything that goes on around us. Mm-hmm. We talked about the children. We've really got to relook at a lot of things that go on and not accept. It's a leadership issue.
Well, and it's also an issue of the public being complacent.
Right.
And not speaking out and standing up and saying, like every time I read an article in the paper that Franklin is fighting this school merger thing, I say, God bless them for standing up and having, the strength to do that. We're down to the last minute. So I'm so glad you came on. They're really important topics that we had a chance to talk about. And if you want to come back at some time, the door's open.
Sure.
Just let me know.
Thank you for having me. It was fun, and it's always good to engage in these discussions and hopefully move the ball a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, keep up the great work.
Oh,
I'm glad you're out there doing your thing on behalf of all of us. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I hope we covered some topics that you feel are important. And I urge you again to vote and to know who you're voting for and why. And do your constitutional duty, okay? I'll see you again next week. Have a great week. Good night.